What responsibility does Israel have for limiting aid to the region? And if I could ask a follow-up to the Prime Minister, what pressure can be put on Israel, and is that something that you and the United States could work on together?
Israel has a lot of responsibility. They're hampered by the fact that you still have 20 hostages or so. And the people of Israel are very concerned about the 20 hostages. It's very interesting. You could say they could be more concerned about retribution than the 20 hostages, but they really want the 20 hostages to survive and live to make it. You know, many of the hostages came to my office, in the Oval Office, and I was amazed by, I would ask them the question, was there any sign of love? Was there any sign of, when you were a hostage and you have all of these people from Hamas around you, sometimes hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you're a hostage and you're being stored in a pipe. It's not even really, a cave, or it's a pipe, a little pipe. And some said they didn't think they were going to make it because they were losing air. There wasn't enough air, and they'd open up the pipe just in time, but they didn't do it on purpose. They just happened to open it. They got lucky. But I said, did they ever wink at you and say, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay? Did they ever give you some extra food, even if it was a piece of bread? Did they ever give you anything during that time? And some were there for 400 or 500 days now, right? It's a long time, a year and a half, more than that. And not one person said there was any love from anybody. In other words, you have hundreds of people, and you see it in the movies where somebody's a prisoner and somebody's helping. You even see it with Germany, where people would be let into a house and live in an attic in secret. You see signs of stuff. I said, did you see anything like, did they wink at you? Did they say, don't worry, you're going to be okay? I ask that question all the time. I've never received one answer that said, yeah, they really wanted to help. No, the hatred is just incredible.
But sir, on the access to food issue, what more can Israel do? And again, to the Prime Minister as well.
Well, I think Israel can do a lot. I will say that Iran, I think, interjected themselves in this last negotiation. Can you imagine the beating they took? We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly.
You have a successful social media site. There are new powers here to censor your site, state mandated powers.
To censor my site?
To censor your site and Twitter Truth? And Facebook.
Truth?
I mean Truth. Is that okay?
Well, I don't think he's going to censor my site because I say only good things. Will you please uncensor my site?
Yeah, we're not censoring anyone. We've got some measures which are there to protect children, in particular from sites like suicide sites. We've had too many cases in the United Kingdom of young children taking their own lives, and when you look through their social media, they've been accessing sites which talk about suicide and encouraging, if you like, children down that road, and that is what we want to stop. There's nothing about censoring free speech.
But that treats all adults like children.
This country is the proud.
But that can treat all adults like children.
Free speech in this country has been for a very long time. We're very, very proud of it. We will protect it forever. But at the same time, I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection issue.
We actually passed a bill in Congress, headed up by my wife, actually, which was to pull bad stuff out having to do with children, because it is a problem. But I cannot imagine him censoring Truth Social. That's more of a very political, and it's been a very big success.
It's not going to happen.
And I only say good things about him and his country, so if they censor me, you're making a mistake.
Will you go to London, or are you worried it's no longer about it?
About what?
Will you visit London during the state visit? Or are you worried?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person.
Are you worried?
I think
he's a friend of mine.
No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Would you want Parliament to be recalled? So MP Nigel Farage has asked for Parliament to be recalled when you're there, so you can talk to the MPs.
Well, I like Nigel. I mean, Nigel, as you know, is a friend of mine. Nigel's done very well. He's a friend of mine. And Keir's a friend of mine.
Would you recall Parliament so that the President can talk to MPs?
Well, Parliament's in recess at the time, but look, I do want to be clear. This is an unprecedented and very special state visit. This has never been done before. There'll be many elements of it that have never been seen before. So this is going to be a historic occasion, and we're all very much looking forward to it. And I was very, very pleased to be able to put forward the invitation when we were at the White House earlier this year. So this is not just a state visit. They're always incredible occasions, and this is an unprecedented second state visit. So you can imagine just how special that's going to be.
The fact that it's never been done before, and that's because it's non-consecutive, and it's the only reason it could be, made it even more interesting, frankly. So it's going to be great. And being with Charles and Camilla and everybody, I've gotten to know because of 4 years and now 6 months. Gotten to know a lot of the family members. They're great people. They're really great people. And in that sense, I think that the UK is very lucky. You can have people that weren't great people. I don't know if I'd say that, but you could have people that weren't. But
we're very lucky to have our royal family. They're absolutely fantastic.
So we really look forward to that. As far as Parliament, if he wants me to speak in Parliament, I'll do it.
There you go.
But it doesn't have to be then. It could be some other time. Maybe we should save it for another time. We'll let the one visit speak for itself. But anytime, if I could be helpful, I would certainly do it. Thank you.
Mr. President, on Gaza, what kind of alternatives are you considering to get the hostages out if there's no ceasefire deal?
Well, there are a couple of alternatives. Some are pretty strong, but the most sensible alternative is talk and negotiation. But I said a long time ago, at a certain point, they're not going to be talking because they're going to lose their shield. The hostages are a shield for them. They did horrible things on October 7th. And the hostages are a shield. And I said, you know, you're going to get down a number, and the number is going to be at a point where you're not going to be able to get them back unless you're going to be very energetic, or to put it a different way, unless you're going to be very ruthless.
Just had a sense of your differences in political persuasion where Nigel Farage and Sadiq Khan came up in conversation. I wonder if you have any advice, either of you, for a very divided, polarized world on how you make your relationship work when you come from...
Not differences. I happen to like both men. I like this man a lot, and I like Nigel. And, you know, I don't know the politics over here. I don't know where they stand. I would say one is slightly liberal, not that liberal, slightly, and the other one is slightly conservative. But they're both good men.
Prime Minister,
I mean, we like each other, we respect each other, we get on, and we've both got a great love of our countries, of our families, and therefore there's a huge amount that we have already achieved actually together, and will achieve as we go forward, leading our respective countries, and of course the relationship between our countries. Donald, we were talking about this morning. That whether it's defence, security, intelligence sharing, it's a close historic relationship. We have fought together in the past. We've always stood together. And I, for one, am very pleased that we've got such a good personal relationship between us. And I think it just shows that even if you come from different political perspectives, different backgrounds, actually there's a huge amount of common ground when it comes to what is in the best interests of our two great countries, and they are two great countries.
Mr. President, your opposition to offshore wind is well known. In Scotland,
wind is a disaster.
But in Scotland and across the UK, wind farms are...
I know, it's a shame. It's not his fault. Well, I used to tell Alex Salmon.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister, and will you speak to the First Minister?
All I can do is give my word. Look, wind is the most expensive form of energy, and it destroys the beauty of your fields and your plains and your waterways. And look out there. There's no windmills. But if you look in another direction, you see windmills. When we go to Aberdeen, you'll see some of the ugliest windmills you've ever seen. They're the height of a 50-story building. And you can take 1,000 times more energy out of a hole in the ground this big. this big. It's called oil and gas. And you have it there, the North Sea, this big, that nobody would even see. You can take 1,000 times more power because the wind is intermittent, it doesn't work, it's extremely expensive. All the windmills are made in China. They used to be Germany and China, now they're mostly in China. They all come out of China. They say that the blades, which are carbon fiber, you can't bury. Oh, okay, you can't bury. What are you going to do, dump them in the ocean someplace? Because they only last a certain period of time. And remember, a windmill has a life of 8 years, especially when they're out in the salty sea, and they start to rot and to rust. You have to replace them. It's very hard to replace them. Wind needs massive subsidy. And you are paying in Scotland and in UK and all over the place where they have massive subsidies to have these ugly monsters all over the place. So I've restricted windmills in the United States. Now, a couple, we have, you know, the poor stupid people at the beginning, they approve them, so they have their full approvals. But I've restricted windmills in the United States because they also kill all your birds. You know, they wipe out. You know, it's interesting. If you shoot a bald eagle in the United States, they put you in jail for 5 years. And yet windmills knock out hundreds of them. They don't do anything. You explain that.
Mr. President, you have said that you have not been briefed on the Epstein files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein files. But doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name is in the files?
I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey, they were run by Garland, they were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the auto pen. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it. The whole thing is a hoax. They ran the files. I was running against somebody that ran the files. If they had something, they would have released. Now, they can easily put something in the files that's a phony. Like, as an example, Christopher Steele, a person you know well, happens to be from your country. But Christopher Steele, as an example, wrote a book, a dossier. We call it the fake news dossier. And the whole thing was a fake. The whole thing was a fake. They can put things in the file that are fake. But those files were run by bad, sick people. If they had anything, why didn't they use it when I was killing Joe and then he gave out because he was 25 points down? And then I got somebody new. Nobody even knew anything about her. She was a horrible vice president. She was a border czar, but she never went to the border. She never once called a border patrol agent to find out how we're doing, but she was the border czar. Her name was Kamala. Nobody knows her last name. It was Harris. But nobody knew her last name. So I ended up, how would you like to end up in a race where you're killing somebody, you're beating him, and then they say, all right, we'll take him out. He's not working. Let's put somebody else. And then she had a 6-week honeymoon. It was amazing. They predicted she will have a 6-week honeymoon, and she did. And then she got slaughtered.
Do you feel that?
But think of it. Those files were run by these people. They were run by my enemy. If there was anything in there, they would have used them for the election.
Do you feel that?
That drawing, I think I heard you say something the other day, that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person.
Do you think it was fraudulent?
I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, you know, for a charity, so. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women, that I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, you know, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. I was at a very high position, you know, pretty much all my life. In all fairness, I've been doing this for a long time. I had the top show on television. I had the #1 bestsellers. I had everything, right? And I was a very successful business guy. He was a very controversial. Who would do a controversial drawing? Now, with that being said, they say there were many letters done by many people, and many big people, you know, big successful people. But I just don't. When you talk about files, I just keep going back, and other people too. Even the enemy says this thing is not correct, because if we had it, we would have used it on the guy. It's a bad issue. They say it's a good issue for Trump. Do you know that my poll numbers are up 4.5 points since this ridiculous Epstein stuff? My poll numbers have gone up 4.5 points because people don't buy it. Okay, people don't buy it. And he's gone, and we want to focus on trade deals. I want to focus on the deal we just made with the European Union, which is the biggest trade deal in history. It's the biggest deal, I think, in history, not just trade deal. So if they would have had something, they would have used it.
And people keep running stories about the time he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach with him?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Mr. President,
and by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.